Welcome, everybody, to I Survived Real Estate 2010. All right. Please feel free to continue to eat. I'll just be introducing a few things, and we'll bring Bruce up, and we'll get started. So this is our third such event, and perhaps this year, the most important. I am Aaron Norris, and I am your MC for this evening. If you could do me a favor, if you got a cell phone, please put it on silent. If you've got that hard candy after you eat, you just know you're going to want it. If you could take care of that now, that would be wonderful. Over the last few years, we've covered the reasons behind the meltdown, ever-changing legislation, government stimulus, and possible industry solutions. And while tonight, certainly that is going to be part of the conversation, tonight it's going to be about the state of REO from a multi-sector viewpoint. We're so proud of the ensemble that we've put together for this evening, and so thankful that you've all, in some cases, flown out from very far places to be a part of this very special event. And thank you for being here live tonight and even online. We really appreciate your support. The benefactor for this evening is Susan G. Komen. And if you're not aware, Susan G. Komen is the world's largest grassroots network of breast cancer survivors and activists, which works to save lives, empower people, ensure quality care for all, and energizes science to find a cure. Really briefly, I'll probably just one more time of standing. It's become a tradition every year for cancer survivors to please stand so that you can be honored. And lastly, if you've had a family member, a friend, or a colleague that's been affected by cancer, will you please stand? Thank you. Pretty shocking. So, as of 2 p.m. this afternoon, all of us in this room have helped raise $63,000 for Susan G. Komen. Bringing our 3-year total to over 160 grand. So thank you very much. Tonight would not be possible without our platinum sponsors who actually allow us to, in turn, move 100% of the proceeds from all ticket sales to go to Komen. I'd like to name them briefly. Please hold your applause really quickly. Foreclosure Radar and Sean O'Toole, San Diego Creative Investors Association and Bill Tan, the Investors Workshop and Sean Watkins and Angel Bronskis, thank you. The Fry Wiles, Invest Club for Women and Iris Veneration and Bobby Alexander. We've got the Business Press, MVT Productions, San Jose Real Estate Investors Association, and Miss Geraldine Berry. Claudia Buys Houses, thank you. White House Catering, and of course, the lovely Nixon Library that we're in this evening. Thank you again to all of our gold sponsors. You are important as well. You've seen their information up on the screens tonight and in the event program and also on the website. Please check them out. We are so grateful for everyone who participates. And last but not least, my time up here is going to be short tonight because it is indeed jam-packed. I'd like to thank two of my heroes this evening. First of all, Mom. Your 17-year fight with cancer has been nothing less but than spectacular. I think what you've taught us kids is that it's not just about strength, it's about attitude and what you bring to the table as far as being able to thrive in the face of adversity. And Mike gave me a very fantastic quote from Maya Angelou that I just think sums it up perfectly. Surviving is important, but thriving is elegant. And that's exactly what you are, elegant. And Dad, for being the incredible example for us kids of what it is to be a partner in crime, you know, through thick and thin, through better or worse, what it means to be an amazing partner, and you just show such incredible grace under fire. We definitely look up to you, and when I grow up, I wouldn't mind being half the man you are. Thank you. With that, I got through it without crying. It's good. With that, I would like to bring up the host for this evening. This gentleman has been in real estate for almost 30 years. Yikes. As a builder, a money partner, and investor with over 2,000 transactions under his belt. He is most known for his market timing predictions and his research, and I proudly get to call him Pops, Bruce Norris.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Oh. You know how that works when your kid about loses it. You know, that was pretty tough over there. So thank you so much for coming. I suppose this event never occurs unless we have a radio show. We never have a radio show unless Aaron dreams up something out of the box. He came to me one day, says, I think we should do a radio show. And I said, why in the world would we do a radio show? And he said, I think it'd be a really good service for our industry. And I tell you what, it's been one of the best things I've ever done in my life, because every week I'm challenged to interview somebody that's an expert in their field. They know more about it than I do. I read, I work a lot on these interviews, and tonight we get to put a panel of them in front of you and discuss solutions for our industry, and I think it's a real important time to do that. Two of the gentlemen gave me homework assignments, and I dutifully bought the books and did my homework, and we'll be discussing some of those things. Christopher Thornburg is back, and recalling last year, I now have a headgear. So in case it gets rough up here, we can put a headgear on whoever is the recipient. The truth is, I want us to be able to share real ideas off of real questions tonight. I've been occasionally part of a panel to where you just feel like I don't think we've accomplished anything because no one took the risk of saying something worth hearing, or, you know, maybe crossing a line or two. With this group, let me tell you, we're going to need maybe more than one headgear, I'm not sure, but I want us to get to the bottom of a couple of things. One of the hardest things that I have to do sometimes is disagree with a conclusion that I know probably is correct, but I don't get it. And so we're going to do that tonight. I'm going to talk with some of the people about concepts that I just don't understand. And if I don't understand it, maybe you have some problems with it too. And some of them are just very basic. Are we going to inflate or are we going to deflate? That's a really important question, because in an investor, you do something very different if you expect one or the other. And I just can't get my arms around some of that. So that's Christopher Thornburg and I are going to go up here alone and talk about that. He gave me a book to read, and I read it, and I don't agree with that one either. And that's so you already know that I'm wrong. It's just that that's where I am. And what I want to do tonight is just be honest and say, you know what? This is about trying to get some answers to some questions that are real important if you're a real estate investor. Because I'd like to map out the next few years based on what I hear tonight. And I think it's possible. Aaron and Diana have worked their fannies off. This is equivalent to a wedding. So if you've ever put together a wedding, you know what they've been through. So the seat changes and the last minute signups and whatever happens, it all falls on their plate. I get to show up and get a standing ovation. Do you have any idea how that feels? Oh my gosh. Thank you for that honor, and I share that with my company because I know that you have received what we try to do for the industry well, and I think you understand our intention. And to me, that it just doesn't get better than that. It really wouldn't be possible without our sponsors, and Aaron has already told you how much we appreciate it, and my wife, who's very, very courageous. And I can't tell you how many lessons we've all learned and observed. So it's just wonderful for her to be here tonight. We just recently moved. We haven't moved for 25 years. And one of the problems came up, what do we do with the wheat? And I'll retell that story because I know not everybody knows that story. About 1975, I'm a young married guy. I just have bought my first home. And I read a book called The Coming Bad Years, written by Howard Ruff. And I just bought it hook, line, and sinker. Scared me. And one of the chapters said, if you're being conscientious, you need to buy 200 pounds of wheat per person for your family. So you could live on bread and water, I guess. I mean, that was my conclusion. If it's going to get that bad, well, I'm going to have enough to have a bread. So I bought 1,000 pounds. We only had 4 people, but I bought 1,000 pounds so I would make sure I had plenty. And that was in 1975. So 35 years later, we had to decide one more time, do we move what's left of the wheat? So we still have a little bucket of about 5 pounds of wheat. I don't know that I'm ever going to give that up because, to me, it's memorable. And to be honest with you, I got to see if this goes forward now. Aaron, I may need your help to get this to go forward. Okay, there we go. Buying that wheat taught me a few things. First of all, it taught me that they weren't lying. You know, when you buy something and tell you this will last forever, it's a fact. The wheat lasts a long time. We could still make a good loaf of bread out of that wheat, and it would be fine. The second thing is, if you look at that title, I probably shouldn't have bought it hook, line, and sinker. So the second lesson was, whenever you get input from somebody else, take all the input, make up your own mind. Because maybe they're not right. How did that decade turn out for the Norris family? Because he was predicting something pretty dire. Well, when we first bought that property, it was a 960 square foot property, and in a decade that he predicted would be very bad years, we managed to build a house where doctors lived in Riverside. So our experience was different. And I just want you to let you know that, there's a lot of people facing some circumstances this year that are very tough. And there's some tough years right now, but don't buy into the fact that you guys can't go on and get everything that you want in life, no matter what your circumstance is. Don't listen to other people. In this country, we get to pull off whatever we can dream up, and it's still that way. Am I doing this wrong? Okay. I think we have a real important year coming up. We've experienced the Great Recession of real estate. We're now in its aftermath. Only 24 months ago, Lehman Brothers failed and set off catastrophic losses for Wall Street, etc. And just like the wheat example, we now have groups of people overreacting and looking at real estate in a different way. They're about to create policy changes that I think could have some very negative outcomes. This is a Time article, and the lead right in the front cover, Rethinking Home Ownership, Why Owning a Home May No Longer Make Economic Sense. I don't really think that's where we want to head as a country. That just doesn't make sense. That little house purchase that we started with, that was a subject to deal before I even knew what a subject to deal was. Somebody else had qualified for that loan, and they decided to move very quickly. We ended up buying that house with $500 down. We couldn't have probably qualified for the financing ourselves, and we got into that house, and then all this started to occur in our life because we got in, and getting in was real important, and it changed our family's future. It's interesting that, now I can't help but do it. This is not... Can you believe that? I had the same trouble last year. Thank you. This is one of the quotes from the articles. And there, by the way, the article is talking about, I think we should take all the tax benefits away from real estate. The interest rate deductions and 1031 exchanges, as if That's going to help something, okay? But this was part of the article. It said that there really is only one effect that seems consistently caused by homeownership. Owners invest more time and money in physical upkeep of their homes. They're more likely to make repairs. They're more likely to garden. Excuse me, but isn't that called pride of ownership? Tommy, you said that whenever you auction off a house, what's usually happened is that house has stopped being loved by somebody. And that's one of the things the auction does, is find somebody that's going to love it next. We all want to live in the neighborhood that she's described. And we're a room full of investors, but we all understand our society is better off when the majority of us get a chance to own a house. And I don't want that to change. I really don't. Do I want us to get more houses for investors? Yes. But I also want to never have the idea of home ownership change in our country. There we go. Now, some people are in positions where they can make policies. Raphael Bostic is the Assistant Secretary for Policy Development and Research for HUD. And this is a statement from HUD. There's this notion that being housed well is synonymous with being a homeowner. That narrative has got to change. That's an interesting statement from people that provide a lot of houses, and that was the original intent. Sheila Bair, Chairman of the Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation. Clearly, there's a strong correlation between the amount of skin in the game a borrower puts up front and how that loan performs. And it's only common sense. Do you put 20% down? You're committed to that house. You walk away from that house, you're going to lose a lot of money that you put up front. So her solution, I think, is to go to a 20% mortgage. I'm not sure that's necessary. In the mailing business, there's something called a control piece. A control piece is something that you've worked on to where you know when you do it, it gets a known result. So everybody in advertising does it over and over again. They send a mailer, and it's designed to get a certain response, and it happens over and over again. And if they want to change anything, they change one thing at a time because they want to see if it improves their control piece. And then if it does, they'll add it to the mix. We already have a 40-year history of a control piece called low down payment purchases in our country. So let's take a look at this chart and see if the damage that was caused for low down payment borrowers has been consistent with the last 3 years. Does it look like it has been? No. So you already have a control piece for our industry. Is it okay to get somebody in if it's a VA loan with nothing down? Does that cause society big damage and we suffer big losses? No. Look at 1970 all the way up to, say, 2000, 2002. No. FHA, 3.5% down. A lot of foreclosures? No. These are delinquencies. The foreclosures are below 5%. Unfortunately, we can't see the percentage on this. It's probably 5% to 10%. Everything's in that line until we get past 2002, 2003, 4, 5, etc. What did we do to our control piece? It wasn't low down that caused the problems. We said, okay, to the control piece we know works, let's add subprime, low qualification, stated income, option arm. All of those things were added to the control piece and didn't work. When you do a mailer that doesn't work, what do? You go back to your control piece. We already know what works. We don't have to try and reinvent the wheel, and we don't have to practice overkill, because if we do that, we're going to have some problems. This is a median house price chart, and what ended up happening in all those years from 1975 to 2005, right to that point, you didn't have price decreases. So if there was a lot of damage done by low down payment mortgages, why didn't it show up nationally? And so to change that policy, I think, would be a big mistake. What's going on right now is a decline of ownership. Some of that probably does need to occur. But if Sheila has her proposition in place, you'll probably see this dip below 60% and probably below that. because right now sellers are not netting a lot of money when they sell properties. And so it would be very difficult to crank up 20% even from this price. This is the amount of trustee sales that occurred when we had a control piece change, and we decided that we would let people go in without qualifying and being able to state income. Those are the changes that were dangerous and unnecessary. But a low down payment, we already have the control piece on that, and it's okay. Here's some unintended consequences. Already talked about one. You'd have further decline in homeownership. I think you'd have a lot more vacant properties because currently there's just not enough financing for investors to absorb this kind of inventory. So if it was created, you wouldn't necessarily have a lot of home buyers, homeowner occupants buying it. You'd have less stable housing costs for people that don't own. One of the things that happened to all of us that own homes is we signed up for a mortgage that, boy, it felt just a little uncomfortable, and then 5 or 6 years later, it feels like your car payment. Did that happen to you? Yeah, we bought a new house in Grand Terrace, and at the time, our payment was about $295. And you're just going, man, I hope we can make it every month. And then all of a sudden, it started taking up less and less of your income, and then it started taking half a week of your net income, and you felt like you didn't have a house payment. You felt like you had a car payment. People that don't own houses never experience that. Their biggest bill in life will always be at market price. And that makes them consume a lot less stuff along the way. So I don't think I want to see in America where that becomes the norm. If this article is correct that when people don't own enough homes, you have less pride of ownership neighborhoods, that's not a change that I'm interested either. And less equity to access for other investments. Most of us have credit lines on a residence, and it springboards into a lot of other things, especially if it's your first house. So I don't want to cheat other people out of that experience. I want them to have that. Once again, I'm going to review one of the things that I would like to see. A zero-down loan program right now would be perfect timing. Warren Buffett, he has a philosophy in business. When other people are greedy, he's fearful. If he was in the loan business in 2005 and 2006, he'd have been out. Said, this is nuts. You guys are you're doing wrong things. I bet you in 2010 he'd say, you know what? I think we could make a lot of loans because the payment on these loans at this interest rate is probably less than rent. If you're ever going to take a risk, it'd be in 2010 and 11 when you have interest rates that create a payment less than rent and lock somebody into a payment that's very affordable. You have potential young adult buyers that are most likely target because they have the lowest current percentage of ownership. Talking between 20 to 30 is really the prime target that's underserved as ownership. Now, we're talking about they have to qualify, but they don't need a down payment. So that would be the only change. And who are we kidding? We just went through a no down payment exercise, only we gave the money, $8,000 a pop. I don't know if you've seen the recent articles on that. There were a little over 2 million of the $8,000 buyers. Apparently 950,000 of them have to give the $8,000 back. Yeah. It's so interesting too because when we came in the limo, there was a couple of examples that I shared where we did everything according to the rules and didn't get the $8,000. It was denied. And then you have a lot of other people apparently get the rebate and have to return it. At any rate, I think it's perfect timing to try something that gets more people into ownership earlier than they normally would. This is the home ownership rate by age. And if you take a look at these charts, all the way from 35 on, you have a pretty high percentage, over 60%. The younger people, under 25 to 29, they're really that underserved category. And one of the things that probably hasn't happened to them is they probably haven't had the credit damage of losing a house. Most of them didn't own one. So what's wrong with giving somebody a shot at owning one of these? We have to have two different criterias with this loan. If you didn't do this, you'd have more foreclosures, and that's the big argument. And a lot of people sign off as soon as I say nothing down, you lose them. If you've ever noticed that, you talk to somebody and you say something that disagree with and they're gone. They don't hear anything you said after that. So I'm going to ask you to tune back in for a second because The reason this program would work is because it serves three borrowers simultaneously. Yes, you're going to have a failure rate with a nothing down mortgage program. You pick the percentage. When your payment's less than rent, is it going to be 20%? I doubt it. But let's say it's 20% and 2 million people sign up for it. So you have 20%, you got 400,000 people that are going to walk away from their house. Why don't we let that loan get assumed without qualifying by the next buyer? And the likely target buyer is the person that lost their house in foreclosure in the last 3 years. They can't get new credit, but they might want to return to those pride of ownership homes, and they'll write a check and save the system a foreclosure. So the original intent of the program is let's get people that have never owned a home in, but a secondary benefit is it also supplies homes to people that were owners that lost them. Have you ever noticed that if you have great financing in place that you might be able to get more for the property? I think what would end up happening is you would be able to get a premium for this type of financing, and that would support the price as well. A secondary feature of just this loan program was when they went to trustee sale, the opening bid would be just the back payments. So just a little example, and I just did this off the cuff in my head. Let's say you had a loan amount of $150,000 at 4.5% interest. 3 months behind, people begin the foreclosure process. 4 months later, foreclosure sale is held. You got about 7 months behind at $1,000 plus foreclosure fees. So $9,000 is the opening bid at a trustee sale. How many would revert to the lender? There's no way. We'd fight over them because that's 4.5% financing. You got to be kidding me. We would take them all. And what percentage would get there? Not an awful lot, but it would provide financing for the group that no one really wants financed, is the investor. And we would buy them. Would we overbid on them? It's a competitive bid situation. The answer is we would. What are you going to do with the extra money? Well, let's don't reward people that don't come through with what they're supposed to do. Let's build a fund that ensures the whole shooting match, or start a program for something that does some good. It's completely, as a matter of fact, this doesn't even have to be a government program. I see ads in the newspaper all the time where very wealthy people are encouraged to donate their money. Let's make it a two-stage process. Donate your money to a nonprofit who makes this loan and causes no losses and ends up with a yield. I would be more than happy if the government didn't have to fund this. And I can't see it losing money. I just really can't. So that's my bright idea.